In the heart of a forgotten moon, deep beneath a surface of rock and gas, lay the Hive, a sprawling, pulsating labyrinth of alien flesh and bioorganic structures. The air was thick with an unsettling hum, an almost sentient vibration that reverberated through the walls. It was a place that defied understanding, a world where the natural and the synthetic were woven together into a single, grotesque living entity. And at the core of it all, a massive brain loomed over its subjects, humanoid creatures with glowing eyes and sinewy bodies, their forms lit by the thin veins of energy running through the Hive's walls like the arteries of a colossal organism. They moved in unison, guided not by their own thoughts, but by the will of the entity they served, the Hive mind. Tarkus, the leader of the squad, stood at the forefront of the group, his piercing eyes glowing brighter than the rest, a sign of his rank. He could feel the weight of the Hive mind pressing on him, a silent presence that dominated his thoughts. It had been like this since the first day they had been created, birthed from the biopods that lined the cavernous walls, fully formed and with only one purpose, to serve. But today, there was a shift in the air, a palpable tension that spread like wildfire among the ranks. Tarkus's glowing eyes flickered as he felt the Hive's consciousness pulse with a growing intensity, almost like a rising storm. He turned to the others, Sen and Joran, their glowing eyes betraying the same confusion and unease he felt. The Hive had always been a constant, powerful, relentless, and all-knowing. Yet now, something was wrong. Suddenly, the Hive mind's voice echoed in their minds, a deep, resonant sound that bypassed their ears and settled directly into their thoughts. An intruder. Near the core. Find it. Destroy it. Tarkus stiffened, the command taking hold of him like a vice. He could feel the Hive mind's anxiety, a foreign sensation that had never once touched their kind. The Hive was their home, an impenetrable fortress. The idea of an intruder was as alien as the galaxy beyond the Hive's walls. Without a word, Tarkus moved forward, his feet barely making a sound as they touched the bioorganic floor. Sen and Joran followed, their glowing eyes scanning the pulsating walls as they advanced deeper into the labyrinth. The winding corridors twisted and turned, each pathway a disorienting blend of flesh and metal, walls that seemed to pulse with life one moment and feel cold and dead the next. Veins of energy rippled around them, feeding power to the immense brain at the center of the Hive. As they ventured closer to the core, the air thickened with anticipation. Something was there waiting. A sudden flash of light tore through the tunnel ahead, followed by a deafening blast. Tarkus raised his arm, shielding his glowing eyes from the intensity. Sen and Joran instinctively crouched, their senses heightened. From the smoke and debris, a figure emerged, human. The intruder stood tall, clothed in the advanced armor of an outsider species, his helmet cracked but his face fierce with determination. In his hands, he held a device small but emitting an ominous pulse. It was a bomb, engineered specifically to destroy the Hive from within. Tarkus felt the Hive mind surge in his head, its rage washing over him like a tidal wave. He lunged toward the intruder without hesitation, but the human was fast. He dodged, the bomb still primed in his hands, its glowing core casting a harsh light on the walls around them. "You can't stop me," the human growled, his voice laced with desperation. "This ends here. Your Hive dies today." Tarkus bared his teeth, his glowing eyes narrowing in fury. He was a creation of the Hive, built to protect it, to defend its heart at all costs. Failure was not an option. Sen and Joran flanked the human, their movements perfectly in sync, but the intruder fought with a level of skill they had never encountered. Each strike he delivered was precise, aimed not just to fend them off but to buy time. With each passing second, the hive mind's presence in Tarkis's head grew more frantic. He could feel the desperation in its pulse, the fear it never allowed itself to feel before. The hive was alive, yes, but it was also vulnerable. Its brain, that massive organ suspended at the center, was its heart and mind, and if it were to fall, everything would collapse. The human pushed forward, slamming his fist into a console embedded in the wall. Sparks flew as he disrupted the hive's energy flow, causing the lights and power conduits to flicker. The veins of energy running through the hive's walls dimmed, and the air grew heavy with the stench of burning flesh and metal. Tarkis could feel the hive faltering. His connection to it wavered, the once overwhelming force in his mind now a flickering, fading voice. "Stop him!" It commanded weakly, but Tarkis could barely hear it. Joran lunged forward, grabbing the intruder by the arm and slamming him into the ground. The human groaned, but his resolve never wavered. He kicked Joran off with a strength born of desperation, rolling to his feet in one fluid motion. But as he did, Tarkis was there, his fist connecting with the human's chest, sending him crashing into the wall. The bomb fell from the human's grasp, rolling to a stop near the base of the hive's brain. Tarkis felt a surge of relief until he saw the intruder's expression. There was no fear, no panic, just cold, grim determination. "You don't understand," the human said, blood trickling from his mouth. "This hive, it's not just a threat to us. It's a threat to everything. It's expanding. It won't stop until the entire galaxy is consumed." Tarkis hesitated. The words were alien to him, foreign in a way that made no sense. The hive mind was everything. It was his creator, his purpose, his life. But for the first time, a flicker of doubt crept into his thoughts. Was it possible? Could the hive's hunger truly be endless? Before he could process the thought, Sen moved to crush the human, his glowing eyes burning with rage. But the intruder acted swiftly, jabbing a small device into the floor beneath him. The veins of energy pulsing through the hive flared, and then, with a sound like a dying gasp, the power flickered out completely. The hive mind's presence vanished from Tarkis's thoughts, leaving only a hollow silence in its place. Tarkis stumbled back, his glowing eyes dimming. He felt empty, lost. The connection that had been his entire existence was gone, leaving a void so deep it was almost unbearable. The human staggered to his feet, clutching his side in pain but looking at Tarkis with something that almost resembled pity. "It's over," he said softly. "I'm sorry, but this had to be done." Tarkis looked at the human, then at the hive's brain, now lifeless and still. The others, Sen, Joran, stood frozen, their glowing eyes fading as they too realized the truth. The hive was dead. Their creator, their purpose, was gone. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. And then Tarkis spoke, his voice low and filled with something he had never felt before: uncertainty. "What do we do now?" The human looked at him, his expression weary but resolute. "You live," he said simply. "You find your own way, without the hive telling you what to be." Tarkis stared at the human, the weight of his words sinking in. For the first time in his life, he was free. Free from the hive, free from its control. But freedom, he realized, came with a price: a future filled with unknowns, with choices he had never been allowed to make. As the human turned to leave, Tarkis watched him go, 1,000 questions swirling in his mind. The hive was gone, but life continued. And now, he would have to figure out what that meant. Tarkis stood still, the weight of the moment crashing down on him like the silent aftermath of a storm. The Hive's lifeblood, the energy that had pulsed through its veins and his mind alike, was gone. The colossal brain at the heart of the Hive, the very core that had governed his thoughts, actions, and even his existence, now lay dormant, its once vibrant tendrils of light and power extinguished. The chamber, once alive with movement and sound, was now deathly quiet. The flickering glow in his companion's eyes, Sen and Joran, dimmed until it was nearly gone, their once assured postures now slumped with a disorientation they had never felt before. The silence was deafening, not just in the physical sense, but in Tarkis's mind. For the first time since his creation, there was no voice guiding him, no presence pushing him forward. The Hive had been his mother, his God, his entire world. And now it was gone. The intruder, the human, stood before him, bruised and battered but alive. He leaned heavily against the wall of the Hive, his breath labored and face twisted in pain. The bomb he had brought, small, unimposing, sat quietly near the base of the dead brain, its task already accomplished. Tarkis's mind raced, trying to process what had just happened. How had one man managed to bring down the Hive? More importantly, why had he done it? The human coughed, his face pale but determined. His gaze met Tarkis's, filled with exhaustion but resolute. "It's over," the man repeated, his voice cracking. "This is what had to happen. For you. And for all of us." Tarkis took a step back, overwhelmed by a rush of emotions that felt foreign and confusing. Anger, sorrow, fear. For so long, he had only known purpose, obedience. The Hive mind had given him everything, from the first breath he took as he emerged from the biopod to the countless missions he had completed in its name. He had never questioned the orders, never hesitated to carry them out. But now, there was nothing. No orders. No guiding will. "What do you mean?" Tarkis asked, his voice hollow. He wasn't even sure what he was asking anymore. There were too many questions, too much to unravel. What did this human know about them, about the Hive, that he, Tarkis, didn't? The human straightened, wincing as he pressed a hand to his side where blood was seeping through the cracks in his armor. He looked around at the lifeless chamber, the vast, pulsating organic structures that were now nothing more than hollow shells. "You were prisoners," the man said, his tone soft but firm. "Slaves, even if you didn't realize it. The Hive, this thing," he motioned to the brain behind him. "It wasn't just guiding you. It was controlling you. You never had a choice." The words hit Tarkis like a physical blow. His glowing eyes narrowed, confusion warring with anger. "We were not prisoners," he snapped. "The Hive gave us purpose. It created us to serve, to protect it. And now it's gone," the human replied, his voice unyielding. "What are you without it?" Tarkis opened his mouth to respond but found himself at a loss for words. What was he without the Hive? What was any of them? He glanced back at Sen and Joran, who stood silently, their eyes fixed on the ground. They, too, were struggling to understand this new reality. Everything they had known, everything they had been, had revolved around the Hive. Without it, there was only emptiness. "You were more than tools for the Hive," the human continued, taking a few steps forward despite his obvious pain. "You can be more. You just need to break free of its control. It's why I came here, to stop it from spreading." Tarkis blinked, his mind reeling. "Spreading?" The human nodded grimly. The Hive wasn't content with just this moon. It was expanding, growing stronger, reaching out beyond the system. It was consuming more and more life, creating more of you mindless soldiers who would follow its orders without question. Eventually, it would have spread across the galaxy, taking everything in its path. Sen, who had remained silent until now, raised his head, his glowing eyes flickering faintly. "We were the Hive's wool," he said quietly. "We existed to protect it, to expand it. But to what end?" the human countered. "Do you even know what the Hive wanted, or did you just follow blindly because you didn't know any better?" The words struck deep, and Tarkus felt a pit open up in his chest. It was true. They had never questioned the Hive's commands, never asked why they were expanding, why they were consuming other worlds. It had simply been their purpose, their reason for existence. But now that the Hive was gone, that purpose felt hollow. Empty. For the first time, doubt crept into Tarkus's thoughts. Could it be true? Had the Hive been using them all along, manipulating them for some grand design they couldn't even comprehend? He had always believed that the Hive was protecting them, guiding them toward a greater future. But what if it had just been feeding off them, using them to grow and spread, like a parasite? Joran stepped forward, his voice trembling as he spoke. "If what you say is true, then what do we do now? What are we supposed to be?" The human sighed, lowering himself to the ground to rest. He looked up at them, his expression softer now, almost sympathetic. "That's something you have to decide for yourselves. You're free now. Free to make your own choices, to decide your own fate. The Hive is gone, but you can still live." Tarkus felt the weight of the human's words settle on him like a crushing burden. Freedom. It was a concept he had never truly considered before. The Hive had always been his world, his reason for being. The idea that he could choose his own path, that he could be something other than what the Hive had designed him to be, it was terrifying. The human struggled to his feet again, wincing in pain. "Look," he said, his voice strained, "I'm not here to force anything on you. I came to stop the Hive because it was a threat to everything I know. But now, it's up to you. You can rebuild your lives, find a new purpose. Or you can let this place consume you. The choice is yours." Tarkus watched as the human began to limp toward the exit of the chamber, his steps slow and labored. He knew the man had risked everything to destroy the Hive, to free them. But now that the deed was done, there was no celebration, no victory. Only uncertainty. Sen and Joran exchanged glances, both of them looking as lost as Tarkus felt. They had always followed orders, always known what was expected of them. But now, for the first time, they were left to figure things out on their own. "What do we do?" Tarkus Sen asked, his voice quiet. Tarkus didn't have an answer. He had led them through countless battles, had been the Hive's most trusted warrior. But without the Hive, he didn't know how to lead. He didn't even know who he was anymore. The silence stretched on, broken only by the faint hum of the dying Hive. Finally, Tarkus spoke, his voice low and uncertain. "We need to leave this place. It's dead now. There's nothing here for us anymore." Joran nodded, his expression somber. "But where do we go? We don't know anything outside the Hive." "We'll figure it out," Tarkus said, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. "We'll find a way." Sen and Joran seemed to take some small comfort in his words, though their uncertainty was clear. They had spent their entire existence in service to the Hive, and now, without its guiding hand, they were adrift. As Tarkus led them out of the chamber, he cast one last glance at the dead brain, its massive form still and lifeless. It had once been everything to him, but now it was nothing more than a reminder of a past that no longer held any meaning. They stepped out into the tunnels of the Hive, which stretched endlessly into the darkness. The bioorganic walls were still warm to the touch, but they no longer pulsed with the vibrant energy that had once filled them. The hive was truly dead. As they walked, Tarkis's mind raced. What did freedom mean for creatures like them? They were born from the hive, their bodies and minds designed to serve. Could they really find a life beyond that? Could they carve out a new existence in a universe they barely understood? The human's words echoed in his mind, "You're free now. Free to make your own choices." But Tarkis didn't he feel free? He felt lost, untethered, like a ship drifting without a course. Freedom was supposed to be liberating, but all he felt was fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the choices he would now have to make. Fear of who he might become without the hive's control. As they emerged from the hive's core into the outer chambers, Tarkis saw the human waiting for them, leaning heavily against a wall, clearly exhausted from his injuries. "You came back," Tarkis said, surprised.